E ano ke ki pu'upu'u o Waimea, na pualike ole o Waiaka. Olu na pena kuaia I kamakani, I ke a malama lama. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. Good morning, my name is Mingwei. And my last name actually comes first in my culture, so my name is Ko Mingwei, and everybody just calls me Mingwei. And I bring greetings from the land of the Kipu'upu'u rain. So in Waimea, on the big island of Hawaii, we have this Kipu'upu'u rain. It's rain that blows sideways. And the school I represent today is the Hawaii Preparatory Academy. And the Kipu'upu'u rain is also known as the spirits. So one of our logos is here, the spirits. And I bring to you greetings also from our Akua'a of Waiaka, where the Kauaia tree sways. It's flexible. And we hope that our students are also flexible and sway with the wind, at the same time being strong like the Kipu'upu'u spirits. And we bring greetings in hopes that together we will care for each other and we will also care for the planet. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming to support our work in building foundation to sustainability in higher education. It just doesn't happen when you turn 18 and go to college. It starts right in the womb. And I'm so excited to highlight educators who are working with our younger ones today. And they will share how they are working with our children in environmental stewardship, caring for the planet, environmental justice, and caring for each other. So I have a quote, and I'll read it because I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, but just to set the context, I have a short definition of sustainability so that we can have a structure from which we can operate this morning. If not, people will have all these ideas. And the short definition I'm going to offer is that sustainability is the possibility that human and all other life will flourish on the planet forever. I'll say that again. The possibility that human and all other life will flourish on the planet together. And that's a quote from John Peregrine. So that's the definition I think that children can really appreciate. That we're in this together. And I don't even like the word sustainability. To me, it's just like sustaining something. So what if we're all in a horrible state and we're sustaining it? That's not the way we want to be. I'm really into flourishing and thriving. And so I'd like to offer that. And also to frame our thinking. Last night, we had a really wonderful presentation from Mitch Tomoshaw about his 9 elements of sustainability, especially on a campus. And if I may borrow his thinking, he offered 9 elements in 3 sections. And under the section of learning, taken my computer. Under the section of learning, I remember, I know, I just want to make sure. He had, if you remember from last night, it was curriculum, aesthetics, and interpretation. Do you remember that? So with that as our framework from last night, how as our panelists present, how is this part of curriculum, aesthetics, something beautiful, and interpretation? How do we manifest our work here? So we have 4 panelists, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And assuming this technology gets working, we have Live Sift, which is, I think we've been using it for the past 2 days. And we're going to use Live Sift to ask questions to the panel. I ask that you keep your questions, do not have operational questions for the panel, please. Don't ask them, so what time do you meet after school for your program? Leave that to ask them in person. Ask questions that all of them can comment, or ask questions that you think the whole group would appreciate learning. Does that make sense? So I hope this thing works. If it doesn't, we'll just raise hands and ask questions. So without any further ado, I'd like to call upon Debbie. Debbie, you must have done this. You said you didn't want to do a slideshow, so this is your wish come true.
My wish come true. Good morning. Thank you for having us here. I think it's really important that we do consider children from the womb, apparently, but we don't have anyone pregnant. So we'll just start with the K, so K to 20. And I worked predominantly with the kindergarten to 6th grade at Waikiki School. I'm Debbie Milliken. And several years ago at Waikiki School, I saw the need, this is a public school in Honolulu, I saw the need for introducing some of these concepts that we could call sustainability. And I actually have a quote that I wanted to start out with. It's coming, but I can't remember it. Maybe you just flip it, I'll tell you. So that we can't solve, actually you can read it, but can't solve problems that we see today by using the same kind of thinking that we used to create them. And we can take that one step further to other quotes. I'm sure you've heard this before in other contexts, but in one in particular is we can't solve problems using the same education that we've always used. And I was lucky enough this week to meet with Zoe Weil, a humane educator, who came to Iolani to speak to us. And one of the things that I learned from her is this idea that, or this, I guess this story that she told about Rip Van Winkle and how he goes to sleep, right, for 100 years. Thank you. And if Rip Van Winkle were someone who had lived 100 years ago and woke up today, and were to walk around, and I'm not going to tell it the way she did, sorry, I'm not a very good storyteller, but if Rip Van Winkle were to walk around today and see the new things like the iPhones and the iPads and say, oh wow, you know, there was nothing like that when I went to sleep. And same with many of the other things that we have today, the technologies that we have today. But when you were to walk into a classroom in any of our schools, or almost all of our schools, maybe with the exception of C and a few others, you would probably say, oh yeah, this is familiar. This looks the same. So I start with that because I really think that that our innovation in education and how we make sure that our children are prepared for this 21st century that we're going to hand to them is crucial. And so starting at the very youngest ages, this just summarizes what we had worked on at Waikiki School, calling it Project Green. This was about 5 years ago. Looking at all sorts of activities on campus, our facilities and our curriculum, and going to the legislature with a bill in particular that affects the health of our students and faculty and staff on our campus, and that was to encourage our schools to use green cleaning supplies. We touched on energy and many of the other ideas, and one of the things about Waikiki School that I think is unique that helped us with what we were trying to do there is this Philosophy for Children program that we have. And that is getting kids at a very young age to think critically and become engaged in these real world issues through an open-mindedness, through a very intellectually safe environment where they felt they could present their ideas without judgment or criticism. And Ming-Wei said earlier about this word sustainability, and so I've been kind of working on that as well. And with young children, what's a better way of saying that? You know, it's such a big word to a 6-year-old that they don't really attach to that word per se. And so I've tried over the years to come up with, or to try to get them to talk about that. What does it really mean? And as you can imagine, many of them, having been raised in Hawaii, use the word aloha. Aloha aina, malama, kokua, our responsibility, kapuna, you know, these kinds of things. So I guess what we really focused on, and I was inspired by what Kumwela was saying earlier about how food's connecting us. And I always wondered, why do I always connect sustainability to food and growing food? And I think it's so obvious, right? And I always felt I had to justify and say, no, we're talking about energy conservation too, and we're talking about renewable energy, and making it seem like it's not all about food, but it really does, I think, come all down to about food, because getting the community and engaging the community, food has been the easiest way to do that, right? I've had energy open house and initiatives at the school, but the biggest community input has been at our garden events or work days. So we created this Waikiki food farm where we grow food by kids and for these students. The basic mission of the program is to get food into the hands of our families who are not, most of them not really getting access to these fresh fruits and vegetables. So luckily the school has been open and supportive of the programs and incorporated them into classroom curriculum. Students go out into the gardens weekly, to the farm and work. And we've made a few community partnerships with restaurants and chefs, and it's been pretty successful. I've now moved on to a private school, so now I'm at Iolani. It's a K-12 private school, and it's been some new challenges, especially working with the older students, so working with middle and high school as well. And what we're developing in this first year is really pulling together a plan for the whole campus, so involving all of these facility students, faculty, community, parents, administration. And the plan right now as it stands really focuses, and I'm just doing this really quick, focuses on three main components. I don't think anything's novel here at all, but looking at facilities, so demonstrating through the facilities as a model, and building our community, and of course engaging with faculty in our curriculum. So one of the things that really inspires me and motivates me to keep going and continuing to work with our young children, besides the fact that I think our education system needs to prepare them for these heavy-duty things that are coming up, is that I really can't teach anyone anything, but I think I can only hope to make them think. So that's what guides me on a daily basis. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so I'm so glad to have you. Thank you so much for jumping ahead while we're struggling with this technology. So if I may indulge, I'll go back to this one where I'm going to give you the live, what is it called, guys? The live sift. So if you would log on to live sift, and the code is 82D9. Is that showing up there? And you can then type in questions for the panel as they're speaking. Oh, more. Thank you, guys. Oh. So as you're speaking, if you think of questions you'd like the panel to address, I'll start collecting them and collating them here on live sift, and then they'll be able to answer them as we go along. Does everybody have the code?
It's pretty cool with the code.
It's 82D9. Oh, if you're still logged in from yesterday, you may need to refresh. Yeah? I mean, they don't have to, they'll only type it when. So, I'm going to back up a little bit, so that now that I have my pictures and my thoughts. So the quote, thank you so much, Debbie, for starting us off and talking about the importance of community. So this is what I wanted to start us off with, the framework of what sustainability could possibly mean, that the human and other life will flourish on our planet. And I really wanted, like I said, to look at, to segue in with what Mitch shared with us last night about learning, and how curriculum, this is important, this is really important because how curriculum is part of the design of our education. And this is particularly crucial as we move along with our panel members, for you to listen about the design of their schools and the design of their programs. How does this curriculum and design, how are they doing this to incorporate activities and experiences that will breed a generation of stewards? And then the aesthetics. Already, this is a few slides from Debbie. We saw the beauty of the farm as well as the bounty of the farm. And Mitch talked about interpretation. And I'm going to call it, what are we going to manifest? What kind of future are we going to manifest? And I love this picture because it shows a teacher planting a tree with students. And everyone's looking on. And you can see those three things happening right there in that picture. There's a design, there's a curriculum about planting trees. There's this beauty about the tree. And it's a manifest of love and aloha for the next generation. And the care, you know, the hands around the soil, it's really, really powerful. And the other thing I also wanted to share is an introduction to what Dawn will talk about, the greening of the schools. So we've heard a lot about LEED buildings. And LEED buildings are wonderful. And as much as possible, we can get children to help us design LEED buildings. But it's been a challenge to have the children actually build those LEED buildings. So in an attempt to get children to actually build the buildings they're going to inhabit, I've turned to bamboo. And I also wanted to show off my husband. So my husband, Bobby, is on the ladder. And this is a bamboo outdoor classroom that he designed with the children. Actually, the children designed it with him. And they built it. And this bamboo was all grown in Hawaii. So some of it came from Maui to the Big Island. But most of it was also grown in Hawaii. So a thought of the design of the buildings that we inhabit. How are we doing this? Okay. And then I really wanted to do this as well so that we frame it. The takeaways that the panelists want us to make sure we have as they go on in their presentation is that sustainability is huge. It's a complex issue. You can read it up there. But really, it's so complex. And so what they want to engage the children in doing is to examine instead of preaching. So that's a really big thing. All right, thanks. So we're going to move on to Dave. So Dave, do you want to come up here and present? Sure. So David Gerke is the program coordinator for Pals and Places, and he'll explain what those mean. But I got to know Dave about a year ago. Dave is one of my students in my year-long school garden teacher training. So last year in June, he showed up after weeks of not returning my phone calls. I didn't know if he was going to come to this training or not. And he actually showed up, and we became really good friends since then. And I'm just so thrilled about his work. And I'll let him share it with you. So thank you so much, Dave, for being with us today.
Aloha, everybody. Mahalo Mingwei for bringing all these creative minds together. One thing I want to start off with is we had this guy, Sam Seidel. I don't know if you've heard of Sam Seidel, but he's really into hip-hop and bringing hip-hop into education. One of the questions he asked was, can you teach creativity in students? And we all sat there. But you know what? One of my other program coordinators next to me, she whispered to me, she goes, you can teach uncreative things. And it was like, yeah, it's totally true. You can teach people to be uncreative. You can put them in an environment where they don't get a chance to express the inner things, the things that they really need to express. So I'm very, very happy to be here today to sort of tell you a little bit about what we've been doing out on the Waianae Coast through Pals and Places and providing those opportunities for students to be creative, to be innovative thinkers, to do a lot of hands-on opportunities that normally teachers would not have the opportunities to do during the school day and also after school. The two organizations or two programs that I worked with is PALS. PALS stands for Program for After School Literacy Support. It's totally after school. It's not standards-based. And what it does is provides a teacher the opportunity to pretty much do what they want to do with kids. And it's not a lot of kids. It's only about 8 to 10 kids. 8 is sort of the top, but then we will have a few other ones if it can work out that way. It's mainly Native Hawaiian population there, and it's a grant-funded program. It's been going on since 2007, and it all started, like most good ideas do, on a napkin. And I'm not sure if it was at a bar. My director never really told me about that part. But she did say that it started on a napkin with her and this other lady, Barb Seidel. And they were discussing, in the sense, we need opportunities for students after school. We know that's a really important time. There's so many things that can happen to students after school to sort of get into trouble and veer different ways that can affect them later on throughout their school life. So how do we do it? And she came up with this after-school literacy support where we do project-based learning that's grounded in place and culture, and providing them opportunities to work with the community that they're surrounded by. Another program that then sort of stemmed off that, teachers turned around and they said, hey, this is great, we love doing this after school. Can we do it during the school day? And yeah, why not? Okay, so this is also another grant-funded program, and this is all grant-funded by Native Hawaiian Education Program. That we looked at how can we make this happen in just one school, because looking at it with, just throughout the whole Waianae Coast where there's like 13 schools there, it's sort of tough to implement that all at once. I mean, the DOE has a tough time implementing many different things all at once. So we took a look at one school, Waianae Elementary School, and said, how can we make this happen during the school day? So we turned around and provided support through project-based learning, through BIE, the Buck Institute, to come in and sort of do a professional development with teachers. And then a staff of 3 of us help support teachers throughout the year to plan and implement project-based learning that's grounded in place and has a community engagement component to it. So a little highlight here as far as the PBL. We go with these 8 essential elements. One, there's a lot, I'm not going to say all of them, but voice and choice is a very big one. A driving question that can focus the students throughout the project. We supported by a great entry event. One of my co-workers loves entry events. She makes me dress up in things such as like a postal worker. I got to go and deliver a postal or a package to students. And first grade students are like, "Oh, who's this guy coming?" And I'm all dressed up, and they're asking all these questions, and they feel that it's real and authentic. And that's also another key essential element, is making the projects authentic and not something from a book that's developed on the mainland somewhere where the kids don't have a connection to squirrels or whatever that project might be. Okay. Focus on deep learning rather than surface learning. So we don't take a lot of standards. We try to keep just a few standards and drive deep into those standards rather than trying to hit everything that we can. And a lot of it's implementation of place-based cultural projects that we involve a lot of community with. So here's a couple examples. Those Pals Juniors sort of stemmed off this year. They wanted to think sustainably about their snack program. So they are now making Capri Sun seed pouches that are going to be used at our Save the Garden Huike in a couple months. And it was sort of cool because 2nd and 3rd graders kept showing up after school with 4th and 6th graders saying, "We want to join." And I'm like, "Well, sorry, you can't. You're 4th, this is 4th through 6th." And so we went back to our director and said, "Hey, we got some interest," and we started the program with them. A couple other things, PALS project highlights. We have food security projects that we do with the students dealing with worms. Girls on the Run is a very popular project that we help support too as well, that gets girls together with female mentors too as well, and provides healthy nutrition and also physical activity with them. We're also involved with aquaponics, and Malo Farms is an excellent partner of ours. Nanakuli Intermediate School did an awesome social entrepreneurship. I don't know if you guys know Vince Dodge, but he's a great community member over in the Waianae Coast that is thinking about all the kiawe trees that are around and what can we do with them, and other than just use them for the mesquite wood. He's developed these Aina-based treats that come from the seed pods, and he actually makes flour out of the seed pods. And one of the projects stemmed from that, and Hyatt in Waikiki at the Shore restaurant there had a contest. Our kids entered the contest, and they won, and now they're being served there. So that authentic and real thing, makes these students think more about, wow, I can do this. This is something that people want to buy, and that social entrepreneurship that Kamuela was talking about earlier, this is something that could possibly stem from it. We do a lot of school learning gardens too as well, just like like Debbie had mentioned. It's really important to get students outside, in hands in the dirt, growing things and seeing these things grow. We have a PALS summer camp too as well, that we provide opportunities for the first week of June to 4th through 6th grade, and put them involved in place and learning about stewardship and how they can be a ko'aina or a warrior for the land. We also have worked with Waianae Elementary, and we're moving on into other areas too as well. Nanakuli High School, we're really excited about this one because we're going to be starting a 3-year grant next year with them, and their school-wide focus is sustainability with career academies. And finally, one thing that we're really excited about, and I'm sure you're going to be hearing about this, is there's this game that's been developed by Solomon Enos, and Kamuela, I think, is part of it too as well, and P4C, Ben, is also involved. And it's changing the story. Ancestral heroes reaching back through gaming technology. We know all of our students love games. I think that was even brought up by Hawaii Energy in a sense of leaving the game on and pause for hours. But the general idea is, how can we create a game that will change the perspective of students? And right now it's a card game, but we're working with Toshiba to create a online game of this. So students can participate more wherever they're at, an HTML5 gaming opportunity that makes them consider how their wahipana, moku, wherever they live, how they can start making a difference in that place, and see that it's not easy. And there's a lot of people that you need involved to make change. So other than that, I think that's all that I have here, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So you can see how this is a continuum. And it was so exciting to actually hear from Dean Gallo this morning that this is the largest year entrance of students in the CETA program this year. And I'm curious, I'm wondering, I'm excited, is this because it's finally paying off? Most of us on this panel, we started this work many years ago with young children in environmental stewardship in the garden. I mean, really, for me, it was in the garden. And I'm realizing these children I started working with as middle schoolers 7 years ago, they're entering college now. So maybe it's really happening, guys. This is really working. Wow, I just got it. I'm so excited. Okay, so we've heard from a perspective of elementary school and K-12. And I'm really pleased to invite Buffy Koosman-Patz, who's the thought leader and the school leader of a very exciting new school here in Oahu. The name of the school is School for Examining Essential Questions in Sustainability. It's also known as SEEKS. And I'm going to just let Buffy tell us more about it. And this is cutting edge. This is a really different kind of model that, Krista, your question earlier this morning about what models are out there, what happens to higher education. when you're going to get children like these, and they're going to go to higher education where maybe it's still siloed and there's no multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary, how does higher education then, how are we getting ready for the children who are coming up from the programs that you're hearing about? So this is really exciting. So I'm going to cue Buffy's to... Buffy's up to you. Do you want to come up or...
I don't know. Does it work?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll stay here. So yeah, my name is Buffy Cushman-Pates, and I try to think about this from your point of view. Why are you here right now? What are you interested in? Why did you come to in the K-12 and higher, Sustainability and Higher Education Summit? Why did you come to a panel on K-20 education? Presumably, you're interested in what's happening, you know, down below to prepare students, or possibly you have come to the same realization that I did at some point, that college isn't soon enough. We need kids thinking about this earlier. My training is as a scientist. I have a master's in geology from the University of Hawaii, and then my sort of, what I've actually done is spent most of my adult life as an educator. And I found that it wasn't in gardens for me, it was in my chemistry classroom, in my algebra classroom, and realizing how related those things were to sustainability and how limited I felt by the curriculum and time structure in a school to implement what I knew really mattered and actually take that chemistry and algebra and put it into the real world use. And I felt frustrated by that, and I'm a believer that if you have an idea and you have the capacity to carry it out, and it's good enough to actually put your energy into, then you better be willing to do it. Woo! Thanks. And I hope that, I really hope that we're making the SEEKS thing look easy, but I will assure you it is the furthest thing from easy. This whole starting a school, starting a public institution, it's been crazy, crazy hard. Yeah, full disclosure, Debbie's son goes to SEEKS, Daita's daughter goes to SEEKS, and Ron Takahashi from KCC, his grandson goes to SEEKS. So there are at least 3 people at this summit whose kids go to SEEKS. They believe their kids happen to be the right age at the right time. We're 6th and 7th grade this year. Next year we expand to 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the good news is we're succeeding. Right now we have more applications for spots for next year than we actually have space for. As a matter of fact, I see a prospective parent in the audience as well. And so, yeah, people like what we're doing, and it feels really good. I want to show you a video. Mingwei's pulling it up, I believe, right? And this video, when you watch this video, you're going to say, this video isn't about sustainability. And that is partly about sustainability. But the thing is, you can't preach at kids. You can't tell them stuff and expect them to just absorb it and then like become little green people. That's not how it works. You have to build a community. You have to help them. Sustainability is community. They have to understand the interactions, the impact of their actions on each other and on the broader community. That's really what sustainability is. So first and foremost in our school, we have prioritized community building. And this community building is really about interacting with each other, and we're building towards turning them into green people. That will come in time, but right now they're 6th and 7th graders. So this video tells you about how we spend our time in a day, and it's been really, if I do say so myself, thoughtfully created, and how we spend our time in a day towards getting students to have that community feel and ability to work towards deeper understanding of sustainability.
SEEKS is the School for Examining Essential Questions of Sustainability. At SEEKS we have a lot of things that we say are our values, like living sustainably and honoring diversity and valuing community, building community. But a lot of schools have those shared values, and we think what's most important is not what you say are your values, but how you actually enact those values. And how you enact your values is about how you spend your time. We really think that we've designed our schedule in the school to enact the things that we value the most. And the very first thing we do in our school day is we start with physical activity. Research tells us that physical activity stimulates the brain, helps you wake up, just gets your body flowing. We start that physical activity, students and teachers learning together. So it can be led by students, teachers, community members, and students choose what they're interested in doing during that block. And then after their brains are stimulated by that physical activity, then we move into our long blocks of academic content.
The instructions say, before starting the activity, mark whether you...
Mathematical applications, science explorations, historical perspective, and English language arts. So math, science, English, history, what students get in other schools, they have long blocks of time to really dig deeply into the content. They have time to do investigations, some teacher-directed learning, a lot of student-centered learning. We have a block of time devoted 4 days a week to artistic expression. In our first year, our students have a technology and design class and a performing arts class during that block, and they alternate on different days.
Great. 1, 2, 3, off. And finally, is that the...
And then we get to the afternoon block, our 2-hour-long essential question of sustainability block that meets 4 days a week. And for a whole semester, students dig into an essential question of sustainability, like how does water sustain us? What are the limits of growth? Questions that adults think about in real life. We want students to be digging into those questions, not just learning stuff, but learning them around a question. And we kick off that essential question with letting students experience people in the community partners who work around that question with an EQS campaign. Opening up my own mouth. And then they come back and they question storm or brainstorm what they're interested in pursuing from that question, and they design their own projects. And students can then request, oh, I need my math teacher's help on this now. They can actually allocate their time in the day to requesting the expertise of the other people that are there with them. We have a lot of opportunities for teacher professional development and teacher collaboration within our workday because it's such a critical element of what makes schools successful. And then also on Wednesdays we have time for advisory work in our small group, small community.
Also have a big part in what is outside of the school, like the people around them. And town hall, where students can do some of the setting their own guidelines and educating student behavior during that town hall. Sustainability is the lens we chose for this school because it's such a pressing issue that this generation of students is going to have to solve the problems that around sustainability issues. We need them to be thinking about it now, not college or beyond college. We can call our students seekers. You're seeking knowledge, you're seeking questions, we're seeking information. And seeking a better future. I love that picture of that's Isaiah Takahashi at the end there. Ron Takahashi, his granddad. Can you still hear me? Okay, I don't want to take too much more time. I just want to say that we're a school for examining essential questions of sustainability. We don't turn our students into little green people overnight, like I said, because sustainability is complex, and it's not something you can't just go in 45 minutes and say, oh, plastic bad, do this, go, you know? But we kind of have to, based on the way most schools are designed right now. You kind of have to go push in with something, and it doesn't really work. The kids don't, I mean, it's better than nothing for sure, but I was frustrated by that. I was limited by that as a teacher. It's complex stuff, and students need to really dig into things like, right now our essential question of sustainability is, what is the value of plastic? Plastic is a valuable substance. It changed the world, and we use it because it's really useful. And so what we really wanted to do is let our students explore why is it valuable before we go into how is it being misused and devalued. But we can only do that with time and thinking of it as an interdisciplinary thing. So that's my takeaway message that I hope is clear, is that sustainability is complex. I know we all know that, but when we convey that to kids too, we have to remember that as well and give them exposure to this stuff, not just tell them stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Murphy. So another model out there of how it's a continuum, how we're raising children to be stewards. Our last group of presenters today come from the University Lab School. We're really excited that we have students presenting. We will have Mickey Tomita and Don Peel, and the students tell us about what happens at University Lab School. How do they also seek and become stewards? And I'll plug you in. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to be the next person. I'm just going to do the next slide. So one of the things that we wanted to present, thank you very much for having us, everyone. I'm actually giving most of the time today to Mr. Peel and my students to present a project that they're working on, which is looking at the lab school as a center to look at education for sustainable development, which Mr. Peel will talk about a little bit, which is a United Nations term for this decade. And then my students will look at a project. But before we go into that, really quick, I just wanted to share some real basic things about our school so that we can introduce you to our school. So my name is Mickey Tomita, and I'm the Dean of Curriculum and Instruction at the school, one of the vice principals. We're a K-12 public charter school, so just like Buffy's school, we're also a charter school. However, we're over 100 years old. We've been a charter for 13 years, but we've been in existence since 1896. So we have a slightly different history than most of the other charters in our state. We are on the campus of University of Hawaii at Manoa, and right in the College of Education buildings. We actually live in the same buildings that they use at night, we use during the day. So a lot of times that's what people don't know, that's where our school is. We have 450 students that are randomly selected from whoever applies to represent a cross-section of the state's entire population that the Department of Education reports to us. We are a demonstration site for improving education. That's what our charter is supposed to be. And we're currently in planning stages to improve our facilities, which my students will talk about in a bit. But just to let you know, so Buffy's school, really awesome, was designed in a way to allow students the most flexibility, to allow them the most interaction with these essential questions. Our school, on the other hand, we have required for all K-12 students math, science, social studies, English language arts, music, visual arts, physical education, another language, and college skills, study skills, learning laboratories, what we call it. Those are all required courses at our school for every student every day from the time they enter into our school program. So there's no space for anything. So to create the kinds of programs that we felt were essential, I actually created an elective class that was totally different than the school system, and that's what my students are in. They're in Project Pono, which is an elective class that's based on environmental stewardship and Malamaina, and that's where this work comes from. So they're in a sort of rogue group on campus, but that's okay. They'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to just progress the slides, and I'll let the featured speakers talk on that side.
Now I can't see what I'm saying. Anyways, I thought I'd start out with maybe giving a little bit of history here on this whole thing on sustainability. And 12 years ago, well, actually for 12 years, I was actually a policy developer for regulating mining, as my background is geology too. Thank you, Bucky. And in that course of time, I realized that my education was really lacking with regards to some of the problems coming up with this mining, what they were facing, and me as a policy developer. So what I did is I went back to University of Alberta, and got a master's degree in the earth sciences, and this is when I ran into this concept called sustainable development. Just to give you a little bit of history, this came out of Agenda 21 back in 1992, and it's really quite revolutionary, this Agenda 21. This is where it all stems from in the essence of the international community. So what I found interesting in this Agenda 21 was this particular section on empowering major groups, strengthening major groups. And you'll notice the first three groups in this are people that have not had much influence on policy development historically. So these are the areas that, this is almost like creating an international democracy. And after 10 years of the strategy coming out, they noticed that it still wasn't progressing to change to this paradigm called sustainable development. We're still in an economic driven. So they thought that the international community agreed that I think we should focus on education. So the United Nations actually declared 2005 to 2014 as the decade for education on sustainable development. And at that point, too, I finished my master's degree, but again, the complexity of sustainability, I decided, I retired from my policy position, and I went and I looked around for different universities that were actually would be good to go study really deeply this complex issue of sustainable development because of the issues surrounding it. And intuitively, I was drawn to the University of Hawaii. And go ahead. And lo and behold, I learned these traditional values that the Hawaiians had existed for thousands of years on these particular land management practices. Yeah. Also, in 2012, the other summit came out just recently, and again, the international community was saying, yeah, we've got to recommit to this whole concept of sustainable development. They also decided we should flip it so that we have a bottom-up process. And one of the ways of doing that is you engage the youth because they're the architects of the future we all want. And basically, we have to find more ways of engaging the youth. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing it. Here's the knowledge platform where there's data just pouring in on a daily basis that students can go to, anybody can go to, free of charge. And there's initiatives that people have made all globally. And these are things that students can follow right now in real time. Also, what's happening is the world we want. The Millennium Development Goals are coming to an end next year. So they're going to be replaced by Sustainable Development Goals. And again, the United Nations is asking for civil society to be engaged. There's websites you can go to. There's a website for children and youth, and there's a website for older children and young professionals too. To actually have a voice in what this development should be, what the issues are. So I think there's a real opportunity right here in Hawaii, a local opportunity, and I'd like to turn it over to the youth.
Hi, my name is Justin Yamamoto, and I'm a current senior at the University of Laboratory School.
I'm Michelle Au, and I'm also a senior at the Laboratory School, and we have some of our classmates who are also helping us on our project.
Okay. So this opportunity is for the school to transform. Hopefully we want the students to be able to contribute and build their own vision of a dream school like they want. So on the screen, the top left is the current school we have, one of our science classrooms. And on the bottom right is the green school in Bali, Indonesia, which is an opportunity, or not, it's a vision of a school that we could build, and that is very interesting to look at. The campus improvements. Back in 2006, with the loss of one of our buildings, we began to think about our classrooms. And currently, we have 2 buildings on the list that UH is thinking about removing. And UH is also in the process of envisioning a new complex for our side of the campus. And the building, Castle Memorial Hall, which was built in 1941, is a historic ULS building with great lighting and ventilation. That building will remain, and it is our building that we look towards because it rarely uses any electricity, and it has many features that take advantage of the nature around it. The other building that we use is heavily used, like Ms. T said, it's filled every day, all the classrooms, even at night with other UH classes and on weekends as well, like the Hawaii Youth Symphony and Hawaii Speech League.
Okay, so our plan basically is two parts. So the first part is figuring out a way to make Building 3 more sustainable and trying to make it a more greener building because it's so heavily used, and that's where most of our classes are located. And the second part is looking at Building 1 and 2 because it's subject to be removed, to figure out a way to like make a dream school for our campus. And we're working with UH to try to develop plans for a new building that we will be able to share, that would be able to take advantage of the natural resources such as like the wind and the sun, and use that rather than like a traditional classroom. So the first thing we did was we collected collected data through our audit, and we used this machine thing to like calculate. We did light, sound, temperature, and humidity in each of our classrooms, and we're looking at Castle Memorial as a model for how we want to improve Building 3. And so after we collected data, we're talking about ideas for how we want our dream school to be. And we're doing a school survey for our faculty and our students and giving their input on how they want to see the future of our school. And we want to learn more from the UH sustainability movement and summarize from our school board and UH. Okay, so this is Building 3. So that's our cafeteria, and you can tell that almost all the classrooms, all the lights are on, and some of it's not very well ventilated. Like there's shrubs behind the windows, which makes no ventilation in the building. And some of the facilities are kind of run down. It's an older building. Yeah. And so this is Castle Memorial. You can tell that the hallways are all lit by the sun. There's lanais where we do art classes, and it's very breezy there. And all the classrooms have lots of big windows, and it's facing the right direction, so the wind's allowed to blow in, and it keeps it cool even on hot days. Okay, so we collected data. We're comparing Building 3 versus Castle Memorial, and you can see, for example, humidity in Building 3 is much higher than that of Castle Memorial because there is more ventilation with the big windows at Castle Memorial, and allows for the breezes to come through. And it just takes advantage of more of the resources that we have.
Yeah, status check. In all, we surveyed 28 rooms on campus and we compiled the data and observations. And we're creating the Dream School list from stakeholder input. We also designed a school environment survey, and it should be circulating around the campus to all the students, staff, and the larger ULS Ohana this week. We're currently recruiting partners in helping us envision a better educational environment. And you're free to join us, and our email is listed below, project Pono at University of Alabama.
I don't know, is that our turn? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so just really quick to tie it in, I know we were really thinking about sustainability education in pre-K 20, and so I wanted to end with just, this is sort of a demonstration of the kind of education that I think we're talking about. So I wanted to pull it back to more of a curricular strand. The ability that these students have to transform that environment is really based on a commitment that we have in our course to peace and sustainability education. And so when we're talking about peace and sustainability inquiry, the things that come to mind for me at least that it's democratic, cooperative, and that it's context and place-based, and it's person and global centered. And those are really big shifts in curricula, because right now that's not necessarily happening in most places. And it's huge for our school, because we were very much Western canonical, like, you know, just all of the highly celebrated disciplines of knowledge and those kinds of things. So to pull it all together into a democratic, place-based kind of education was a little different for our school. And then when you talk about peace and sustainability education, really you're questioning this kind of winner-loser paradigm that has large class discrepancies that really favor the wealthy over the earth and the public. And so this kind of turns it on its side, where it says, you know, we're all equal stakeholders, and that our earth, our planet, our people, we're all equal stakeholders, and that wealth is not necessarily monetary. And so it kind of questions that as a paradigm, at least in my class. The kids don't really know that that's what I'm questioning, but they're doing it, so it's great. It's kind of hidden, my hidden curriculum. It's a better hidden curriculum than most, I guess. And then it also questions an education system that favors knowledge as a commodity that's crafted, sold, and consumed. So in this case, the students are empowered as agents of change in the community in which they are actually the biggest stakeholders. These kids are at school. Sometimes I get to school at 6 in the morning, and kids are already there, in the dark, sitting with blankets, like doing their homework, and to me, they should be designing a system that fits to their needs. They're also at school till 7 or 8 at night, and so, you know, teachers don't see it as much as they do, and we want to make them the center of that redesign because they deserve it. And then just in terms of curriculum links, the reason, you know, all of this came about is there's International School Peace Gardens, which is a global network of peace garden schools and educators, has a focus on global sustainability education, which teaches environment and peace together on the assumption that peace is actually pivotal to true sustainability. That you cannot have sustainability in any way without thinking about peace, because that's what is the driver for thinking about equal partners and how we are as a planet and our people together. So the focus there is really focusing on how to clean up the messes that we've made, a focus on what sustainability means and how we care for the earth, and focus on supporting future leaders to resolve conflicts peacefully. And that's sort of what we hope that we're imparting upon these students. And then again, education has to have a deliberate focus on reducing impacts on the global commons, so that the resources that we all share and that we all have a responsibility for, but yet we collectively tend to neglect. And then just that International School Peace Gardens is a context for interdisciplinary inquiry and partnerships. And I just show these really quick, because those of you that have heard me speak in other settings before, you know that there's a worldwide voyage of Hokule'a Hikianalia to Mala Mohonua, and this is actually a Mala Mohonua project that the students are engaged in, amongst others. A couple years ago, the International Day of Peace, this was the poster that they showed, which was Sustainable Peace for a Sustainable Future, and I still carry this really deep in my heart, because I think that that is the key to a sustainable future, is sustained peace. And then just the class that the kids are in and the group that we represent is called Project Honua University Laboratory School, and we also work in partnership with the International School Peace Gardens. So that's basically our spiel, and I'm sorry if we ran over time. We tried to say everything.
So I'm going to see if I can pull up these questions for the panel. Oh, no questions for the panel.
Can we just ask?
Yeah, we should. Please. So I'm just going to remind you about the questions. Keep any operational questions for one-on-one, and do ask a question that the whole panel can consider and provide comments. Kristen?
My question's for Debbie, but other people can jump in. I've been so curious, Debbie, since you moved from Waikiki Elementary to Iolani, what are some of the pros and cons of having more resources versus, you know, the funkiness of Waikiki Elementary?
Well, first you said that, and I just feel the guilt rising up. But
no, I want to know, like, I don't know, what is it like? Do you have more freedom? Like, oh, if we just were rich, we could like do all these amazing things. Can you really do all these amazing things? Or
no, actually, I wish that were the case. But again, it still comes down to people. And as Buffy said earlier, you know, you just can't come in. I hope to be able to do that top down, make a big change, but it really takes a lot of awareness at all levels. So forging those relationships at a school, even though they've created a position and brought me in, which, by the way, the history to Waikiki School is that I made the position and forced my way in. So I thought that maybe by coming to a place that really wanted to make this change would actually make it easier. And it might in the end up being easier and we could go further with it. However, I still think it's taking that relationships with everyone. So I'm making relationships with our cafeteria staff, with our facilities, with students, parents, teachers, you know, the whole 9 yards. And then next year creating this plan together. But as far as what you said about resources, it does make it a little easier. My time is less spent on writing grants. But in the end, my budget was the same at Waikiki pretty much, right? I mean, just what I needed to get done, we found a way to get done. There's a lot more community support at a public school, as you can imagine. Now many of my partnerships in the community have said, oh, you're at a private school, you know, figured out, which is fine, and I understand that. So again, it comes down to people, but right, making those relationships and making those changes. Work on that. Thank you.
I can speak a little bit on that.
I'm sorry?
Did they close the position at Waikiki, or did they have
like a part?
At Waikiki School now, I always wanted to get to the point to make it a real faculty teaching position, which would be a full-time with benefits, but it has yet to have been brought to that level. We now have 3 part-timers, so 3 20 hours, or 17 hours, whatever the max is allowed, ideally, which is great. Lots of support for the program.
And to add what Debbie had mentioned, our programs come in with a lot of money that's grant funded. And if the administration has no want for it or they don't see a need, and you don't have those relationships, like Debbie was mentioning, you could have a lot of resources, but it really is about the relationships that you have either with a private, a charter, or more of a public school setting. And we work with most public schools. That's really key. We have certain people certain schools we work with where admin, curriculum support, vice principal, everybody sits down at our meetings when we start thinking about a project. And we have other schools where they're not around. And we can see that without those relationships, it doesn't matter what resources you have, it just doesn't mesh. So relationships are really key, especially with community.
Hi, I'm Esther Diaz. I'm a faculty in mathematics at UHSS. Speaking of relationship, I have some ideas about making connections with K-12 institutions, but I'd like to hear your ideas about what would be ideal or what you've done in the past, making the bridge between K-12 and higher education.
Great question. Jump in. Relationships with higher ed.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, actually. I can tell you in our school, but that's one school, right? In our school, we actually designed our essential question of sustainability block, that chunk in the afternoon, to be flexible so we can have experts come in and work with our students one time and then develop mentor relationships with students over time. But unfortunately, our school is a single data point, right? What I will say about those partnerships is that it's hard, that partnerships need to go both ways. I can speak to this from the point of view of a teacher, is that a lot of times, and this isn't about you, it's about my experience, a lot of times people want to come in and do stuff in our classrooms, but it's actually got to be a two-way street. It's got to be, where are we in our curriculum? There's a lot of demands on teachers in schools and curriculum, and it's got to be aligned. And so it's got to be, how can we help each other, and how can you come in and maybe see what we're doing? I'm speaking from the point of view of a teacher right now, even though I'm not really that right now. But how can external partners come in and see what we're doing and then build with us there? So basically, in short, it's got to be not a one and done kind of thing. It's got to be a relationship that you build with a teacher or a classroom, and it's usually going to be a couple of people or maybe a dozen at once, and you're going to make the difference with little bits at a time and build those relationships and honor the fact that the teachers have an amazing expertise too, as well as the expertise that you bring in your content area. The teachers are usually quite good at working with kids, and that two-way partnership is really important.
So I can add to that really quick from our perspective. Because we're so close to the university, I think that might be what it is, and because our curriculum historically has been filled with the help of university researchers and university faculty, we still have a lot of people come over across the street and help support our lessons and do some sort of deep digging into concepts. And then myself as a graduate of CTAR, because my interest is in sort of renewable energy and in wastewater treatment and aquaponics and things like that, I actually drag the kids across the street to the labs with me to just walk through, because I'm still welcome there, I guess, for now. And we go through and they get to see what the researchers are doing and how they're doing it and what it means to have that as your profession. And we go up and they know that they can call in the kids to help volunteer to say lay gravel at Haletuahine, the new aquaponics research complex. You know, like it's a two-way street, and so our students get to help them in doing manual labor and just learning at their in their labs, but also you know, the researchers kind of test out ideas. A lot of them have grants that they have to do K-12 education outreach, and usually they call us first because they know that they can work with our kids after school or during special breakout sessions to test out those ideas before it goes out into other schools. So we have a more formalized partnership with some of the university entities, but it works really well, I think, for us anyway.
So these guys are graduating in May. What are your plans? Are you going to the university or are you going somewhere else?
I know I'm losing them. No. Go ahead, you say what you're going to do. Go ahead, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Here. Yes, what do you plan to pursue?
I'm going to environmental studies.
Environmental studies at UH or mainland?
I'm not sure yet.
You're not sure yet. And what about you?
I'm actually interested in like physics and sciences, but I'd really like to just learn about every subject because I see everything is connected.
The question I have for you too is since you've been working on this Pono project and your time is almost at an end, your project may never, or it won't be completed in the time before you leave. So how are you going to address that? Are you just going to like, okay, I've done my bit and I'm off, or will you stay connected depending where you go?
So we have like the sophomores and juniors that are also part of our elective, and they kind of take on some of the projects. So we started a project a couple of years ago with those classes back then, and we're still continuing it. For example, like our recyclathon and Food and Family Day, we carry on that. And also a lot of our alumni come back and help out, and we go to Toronto and things like that.
Cool. Yay. So there's a formal structure in place sort of in the class by design that it's an apprenticeship model. So the sophomores work with the seniors on continuity of projects, follow through. But then in college, like we just had a Kaho'olawe 2026 focus group, and we actually brought in through Skype and Google Hangouts our students that are in college in the mainland that have participated with us throughout the years to be part of that focus group. And they still guide and help coach the students to do their other projects. So this campus redevelopment project is one of like 5 major projects that these kids are involved in, and they have mentors that are in the community, like farmers and engineers, but they also have mentors that are in college that started the projects 5 or 6 years ago.
Any other questions? I could just add something really quick to Esther, what you asked earlier about the relationships with higher education, and maybe speak for the elementary level. What's worked really well for us has been service learning programs through KCC. I think very reciprocal with one another. So students coming out and learning what we're doing and working with them. So I guess, I think the only thing to add on to that bit is to provide that support at the school. It's a lot of work. I know on both ends, but KCC has a service learning department. It has the support structure that's in place, but most schools will not have that, right? So developing those positions in schools.
Question,
My name is Jonathan with Education Energy, and I wanted to ask, we have a lot of really incredible curriculum writers and educators at this panel, and I just wanted to ask what your thoughts are on this transition into more project-based learning, service learning, from a standards perspective. So we're starting to, it seems like we're starting to merge, or it's starting to evolve to a new approach to education. But is there a line between like hard standards and then these really creative and free-flowing curriculums on project-based learning? And have you been able to merge the two successfully? And any thoughts on that?
They both matter. They both matter a lot. And yes, we've been able to merge them successfully. It's basically the design of our school, is that you learn skills and tools in your sort of traditional classes, but you learn them for a reason, to apply them to project-based work. Real life is projects. But in real life, in our projects, we need to know stuff too. We need to know how to write, we need to know how to read, we need to know how to do mathematics. Those things matter, but you can't decontextualize them when they're just, but the standards aren't being written, the new standards are really, they're written with context to them. So, I mean, these things aren't mutually exclusive. You need them both, but you've got to find ways to get them both in schools.
Yeah, I totally agree with Buffy. And, you know, a project isn't something that just sits on top of a shelf. You know, I think, as a former school teacher, and that's what I thought a project was, but it's really, you know, the PBL model, I think, gets students much more actively involved. And one thing that we do with the students is a need to know list, where now they're developing more thoughts than what me as a teacher or a program coordinator could ever do, and then we're like, oh great, you know, all these other standards we could possibly hit just because of what the students are thinking. So merging that, I don't think it can be difficult, but PBL is definitely the future, for sure.
If I may say something about standards, standards are really important, and I actually want to advocate standards for education for sustainability. We have to be clear about our entry points and our goals. And whatever entry point you come into this work, food, renewable energy, culture, that's your entry point. But our standard, our gold standard for all of us, for the universe, is sustainability. And so what does that mean? And the standards for me mean that we all treat each other well so that we can flourish. That's a standard. How we treat each other is a standard. I mean, me pushing Debbie is a bad standard. A good standard that I can measure is how I treat her. So we've really got to be careful about extracting standards from projects or experiential learning. We actually should make our standards even more, because those standards include caring for the planet, social justice, raising our children the right way. So as educators, I really want to encourage us to think about standards for education for sustainability. What do those look like? What should those include? And then when we do our projects, when we work together, we all can work toward the same goal, however your entry point is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just one last question. So are any of you utilizing social media or any online platforms to have your students showcase their work and their projects?
Definitely. That's yeah.
Yeah, they maintain a Facebook page and a Twitter account and Instagram, and that's right. It's hard to do in elementary.
Yeah, our kids are too young.
Sorry.
It's against the law.
It's lunchtime, and I really want to respect the fact that children have been here. Thank you so much for your time. Please engage with our speakers during lunch. Thank you so much for your attention, and let's give them a